Welcome to Smart Money with Chris Swartz. Living life on your terms requires more than income. Smart Money connects you with the people, tools, and strategies that turn income into freedom. Today's guest is Maria Brown, founder of Serenity Wellness and Coaching and Maria Brown Breathwork. After over 3 decades in science, research, and education, she now helps high-performing individuals regulate their nervous system through breathwork, movement, and creative expression. She's also the host of the podcast, Regulate Your Nervous System. Maria, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm so excited to be here and so excited that you have this platform for high performers. So thank you for bringing me in as one of your guests.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you and really excited to dive into this because I know a lot of people think smart money and they're like, Chris, tell me how I can double my income, make smart investments, buy real estate. But I know through having connected with you that there is a lot more to getting to where you want to be that most of us don't think about and don't realize. And that is really in your state, your breath work, and everything that you do with your mind and body. Tell us a little bit about yourself and really how you got into this and what this has to do with smart money.
I got into this through trauma, event trauma with my son. I had been a professor at a university on Long Island and teaching high school science research to really high performing high school students, and had this event with my son in 2020, and it just knocked me down completely. My nervous system had been so dysregulated. I had never experienced anything like that before. For me, it was really a shock. And over the year that followed that event, there were so many modalities that came to me for nervous system regulation, or that I found, breathwork being the number one modality that just allowed me to become centered in a way that I could get clarity, focus, creativity, joy, and really start to think in a way where I wasn't reacting, I was responding to everything around me. After that year, I had taken a leave and I decided that I wanted to work with anybody who really wanted to learn about nervous system regulation. Found myself as a solopreneur. And as I was going through on my own, creating my own business and moving through a career that I didn't feel I was really prepared for. I didn't have a business background. Marketing would really stress me out. Social media would really stress me out. And all of a sudden I found out that I was moving towards this place of burnout because my nervous system was becoming dysregulated again. And then I was like, you have the tools. Let's just apply them here. They worked great for trauma, so they must work really well for business. And that's when I started working with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. And it's just amazing that the way that we show up in our business is a choice. And every single morning, if you wake up with low energy or you wake up in that listing mode, right? You wake up and it's like, I've got meetings starting.
Right.
It's a choice to slow down and begin to regulate your nervous system so that you can perform at your highest level with clarity, with focus, with just centered, a grounded start to your day. And as high performers or anyone in business, especially building wealth, whatever triggers us, if that first thing in the morning triggers us into a dysregulated nervous system, which is putting us into fight or flight, literally that evolutionary response that allows us to flee or survive, right? We're literally in survival mode. Those triggers are what's in our head, right? Those thoughts. And those thoughts they trigger emotions. And the emotions trigger our actions, and the actions trigger the outcomes. And so if we start in a very relaxed rest and digest mode by regulating our nervous system, because we have a choice to take 5 minutes and do that, or 10 minutes and do that at the start of our day, it can change the entire outcome of the way the day goes.
So let me kind of talk about that a little bit. As an entrepreneur and as somebody that's listening, high achiever, they're always in that kind of go, go, go mode. I mean, what are some of the ways, because even myself, having worked with you, sometimes thinking about this, it's like, how do you actually put this into practice? How do you start your day in that kind of, relaxed state and really put something simple into practice so that you're not starting out the day in, fight or flight mode?
That's a great question, Chris. Thank you. So the first thing is body set. Everybody talks about mindset, but you can't get into mindset unless you have your body set correctly. And the
Okay.
first thing, so you've done some things with me. The first thing is you need to know how you're breathing in general, right? If you are breathing shallowly or you're breathing through your mouth, that is the same breath that is used when you're in fight or flight. It's even though it may not be that accentuated, and people don't know that they are over breathing, that they are taking these shallow breaths. So when I talk about over breathing or taking shallow breaths, it means that when you place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest, when you take a breath in through the nose, the shallow breathing would have your chest area raising first instead of your belly. Right? And so when you breathe shallowly through the chest, you're actually taking oxygen from the upper lung area, which does not allow for delivery of oxygen as efficiently, which you need for your brain and for every bodily function in your body. So that shallow breathing keeps you in that stress response all day long, keeps you feeling anxious throughout the day. You feel scattered, you have trouble focusing and getting clarity, and it's like you're in a million directions, right?
That connection between the breath and the brain, it sounds like it really affects your decision making.
Absolutely. When you slow down, right? When you slow down the breath, you close your eyes, you have that hand on the belly, and you take a deep breath in through the nose, and the belly expands like a balloon, and then you exhale slowly through the mouth. You can feel your shoulders drop. You can feel your jaw less tense.
Yeah, and we've done some work. It's like even hearing you say this, I didn't do it right now, but it's just like you do that, and it just really does just calm you and allow you to recenter and focus.
Absolutely. So starting off the day, if you are anxious, doing what I call a 1 to 2 breath, or breathing in slowly through the nose for a count of 4 and exhaling through the mouth as if you are blowing through a straw for a count of 8. It just slows you down. In less than a minute, you will feel the shift. Once you're at that state, you said something really important, Chris, about the effect of your brain in making decisions through the power of your breath. Once you slow down, there's something called coherent breathing, where the brain and the body connect. When
Okay.
you are dysregulated, you're not connected, and that's why you feel scattered and you're all over the place, and it's hard to commit to a decision, and
Mm.
you're just reacting. You're not responding because you're not slowing down. So you can just do a breathing technique where you're breathing in for a count of 4 through the nose, out through the mouth for a count of 4. And then as your body gets comfortable with that, shift it to 5 and 5, shift it
Okay.
to 6 and 6, 7 and 7 as the weeks go by. And that causes you to slow down how many breaths per minute you take. When you're slowed down, when you shift from fight or flight into rest and digest, that's where the thoughts in your head, because you've already set the body, the thoughts in your head are triggering emotions that are eliciting excitement, creativity. Your actions result from that. And then the outcomes that you're really desiring for the day or the project or whatever you're working on come to fruition in the way that you would hope.
Interesting. I know so many entrepreneurs that focus on, the process, the systems, all of the external things that we can tweak and change and, getting the best AI. You and I do a lot of coaching with AI, but in your work, with high functioning entrepreneurs, high level entrepreneurs, are you able to see the impact between a regulated nervous system and the correlation in their finances and the growth of a business?
Yes, because they're not performing from a place of lack, from a place of fear. They are more consistent in the
Mm.
way that they are showing up each and every day. And they are not burnt out. They're not feeling overwhelmed. Their relationships at home are better, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur or a high performer, sometimes you have, there's this imbalance. And not that there's ever truly balance. It's like this dynamic equilibrium that happens, right?
Yeah.
But because when they are focused and they're creating and they're focused in their work, they're so much more productive. And so the breathing is what we call activating the pharmacy within. And just by regulating your breath and your nervous system, you're actually increasing the efficiency of oxygen delivery to your mitochondria, to every cell in your body. The mitochondria, just think of it as a powerhouse. It's your powerhouse. And so every single cell in your body has this mitochondria. And so you want to make sure that the oxygen is getting there, right? And it's not being used and that your energy isn't being drained because you're trying to survive. When you're thriving, everything else flows. You go into a flow state.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because I guess that's kind of like where you're operating out of this like survival mode. And I see so many entrepreneurs where you're operating out of survival mode and you're reacting to, market conditions or all of these other, external, again, variables. And it takes us out of, I guess, creation mode, right? Which is where entrepreneurs thrive. And
Yeah.
it sounds like this is what we need to really get to that creation mode. Would you say that?
I would say that, and I would love to add that when you make these somatic practices, right? I'm just talking about breathing, but there are so many other practices that you can do. Breathwork, I feel, is like the quickest way to do it. But when you are doing this as a practice, it allows you to build resiliency. And what that means is that your internal environment is so regulated that anything that's happening on the outside is there. Like it's so much easier to set those sacred boundaries about, okay, I'm feeling fear about the market shifts right now. And the first thing is most people get into their head, but the place I feel the fear first is in my gut. So when I listen to my body before I listen to my brain, I could get out of those negative thoughts, those negative stories, right? Because those thoughts are going to bring in those negative emotions that are going to bring in those
Right.
negative
It's the whole
actions that are going to lead,
spiral of,
right? It's that whole spiral. So if I just listen to my body, set my body, then my mindset is good. And it's all about the internal regulation and staying that way. So that's why like having the practice is so important. Doing something, even if it's 5 minutes in the morning, 5-minute reset in the middle of the day, and something in the evening to down regulate so that you're getting deep restorative sleep. When I work with the entrepreneurs that I have been working with, my clients say the number one thing that has impacted them most is poor sleep. And poor sleep leads to poor performance. And there are ways to downregulate in the evening as well, so that when you wake up in the morning, you're full of energy. And then there's ways in the morning that if you wake up with low energy, to stimulate that energy all through the power of your breath.
wow. What are some ways? I know you're working on a lot of things right now. You have a course, and so if someone's listening and they're like, "Well, this sounds great, but where do I start?" There's so many different places and there's so much information out there, and I think this is so important. And I think really you just need to get started, right? And I know you're trying to help people with that.
Right. And I coach groups, I coach individuals, and for somebody to just experience it on their own, to be like, this sounds a little woo-woo to me. A lot of people say that to me. It sounds a little woo-woo that there's activating the pharmacy within, but it is so true. So they can try it themselves in the morning. Just like I said, try that 4-8 breath and also followed by a 4-4. Right? Breathing in through the nose for 4. And that creates that heart-brain coherence, right? That brings you into a regulated state. If they're feeling low energy in the morning, they can breathe very quickly, and they can just look it up on the internet, and you can just look up breath of fire. And so you can move your
Which is
arms.
awesome, by the way. We did Breath of Fire in
Yep.
Bali, right? Like,
Yeah.
that one is if that doesn't get you going, then you need to, like, go to the doctor and get your pulse checked.
Yeah, it's so easy because you just blow out hard through the nose and pull the belly in. When you on the inhale, you put your arms up, and then on the exhale out, so it'll look something like this. It's just nasal breathing. My hands are already tingling, right? So 1 minute, like you're going to be like, woo, okay. So you can start energy. Midday reset, always just that coherent breathing, 4-4-5-5, or if you're really anxious, go back to the 4-8 breath. And in the evening to downregulate, we do a modification to that 4-8 breath, which is called a 4-7-8 breath. So you
Okay.
breathe in through the nose for a count of 4, hold your breath for 7 seconds or count of 7, and then exhale slowly as if blowing through a straw again for a count of 8. Do that for 5 minutes without any screen time, and just allow your body to get ready for bed. And then as you're laying in bed, go back to the 4-8 and you'll fall asleep. And if you wake up in the middle of the night, try that again and you'll fall right back to sleep.
All right, interesting. And as you're doing the breath work and all that, we're talking about, getting better sleep. Is there anything I hear a lot about, like screen time and lighting and things like that, that even though you're doing the breath work and then you're done and you maybe pop out the phone, and is that counterproductive here, or how's that play into
So
it?
it's really important. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because in the evening, the first thing is that 1 hour away from any screens, right? Because the blue light is definitely activating your brain and you want your brain to start to settle down. And so reading, or I always say this is a great time to just reflect for a little bit on the things that happen throughout the day that you're truly grateful for. Because when you look at levels of vibrational energy, gratitude, love, joy has this real high energy level. And we don't want to think about the things that it's so easy to focus on the things that didn't go our way, or things that we're kind of beating ourselves up about. Like, that's low energy. So you want to go to bed thinking about things. What am I truly grateful for? What happened today that is really amazing? And even if it's a small win, focus on the small wins. And then sit there and do that 4-7-8 breath. Make sure that there's no light coming in. I know a full moon, there's a lot of light that can come into your room. So have some blackout curtains, or have a really good pair of an eye mask. Some people use white noise. Some people go into their phone and find theta brainwave music, which will
Okay.
bring you into that's what you're in when you're in deep restorative sleep. So it'll shift your brain waves. And so brainwave activity has a lot to do with this, as well as this down regulation preparing for sleep. Because when we're active, we're in beta brainwave mode. When you wake up in the morning, you're in alpha brainwave mode. But when you're in deep restorative sleep, you're in theta. And then when you're in REM sleep, you're in delta. So there's all these shifts, and there's a timing that's supposed to happen when you shift in your sleep. And if you're not down rating in the evening, 60 minutes before bed, or at least 30 minutes before bed, you're not going to have that timing in the shifts in your brainwave. And the
Wow.
reason that light is so important is because in the morning, the minute you open your eyes, the light triggers serotonin production and cortisol production, right? That's supposed to get you active for the day. But in the evening, if your serotonin and your cortisol levels don't decrease, your melatonin levels, which are the things you can go buy
Right.
melatonin to help you sleep, melatonin can't get high enough to allow you to go into that important sleep cycle to get deep restorative sleep.
There is a lot that goes into just making sure that we're taking care of ourselves as entrepreneurs so that we can make critical decisions and we do have the energy to navigate all this stuff. And I know we haven't even really touched on it, but I feel like we need to, through some conversations that we've had and getting to know you. How did you get into this? Like, there's so much here. There's all these little nuances. And I know it was an interesting little bridge that you crossed from your previous life, right? And you
Right.
studied some other other stuff before you figured all this out with entrepreneurs, right? Your subjects were a little smaller.
My subjects were smaller, and I mean, it was all science-based, right? So, I mean, I did science research for 35 years, and whether it was with really, some of those high school students had IQs higher than mine. And then at the university, I worked with undergrad all the way through postdoc people, students who were working with me. And so I was always involved in research, and it was ecology and evolution. And, it's interesting because I always looked at the external environment and regulating and making sure how do things stay in balance as an ecologist and a geologist. And now the shift has been to the internal environment and how to regulate, but it's all science-based.
Yeah, no, and the smaller subjects I was speaking were not smaller,
I know, they were
people.
humans.
The bats. I was talking about
Oh, those bats. Yeah, the bats were my research. Yeah. So I studied bats in 5 continents around the world and learned a lot about them and even their respiration. I have some fun facts about their respiration compared to ours, but it's been an interesting transition. All of the information, whether I'm working with small humans or small animals, right? It is interesting that you just brought this up, and I'll tell you why. I just had a client that I actually had her dog come to one of the one-on-one sessions, and it was one of the most powerful sessions I ever had. And she's a realtor, but she was going through cancer. And literally the day I met with her, she was going in for reconstructive surgery the next day from her cancer, and she was a mess. And her production as a realtor had really plummeted because she was so dysregulated from all of the things happening in her life. And in 1 hour, it literally shifted. But her dog, it was so sensitive to everything that she was moving through during the breathwork session that we did, that the dog ended up being a very important supportive part of the breathwork session. And the dog was responding. The dog was responding to the shift in her heart rate, right? So the breath work lowers your heart rate. It increases your heart rate variance. It lowers your blood pressure. And the dog was responding. And as soon as she would get anxious, the dog responded to that. And then when she calmed down, the dog was like right up on her chest and relaxed with her. It is very interesting. This was 4 weeks ago. She just texted me 2 days ago. She's had 3 multi-million-dollar clients in the past week.
Okay. Wow.
So she's got potential sales with 3 real high-end clients in real estate, and she's in Arizona. So it really helps you shift because it's the way you show up each and every day, not only for yourself, but for the community that you're serving.
Yeah. And I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing this, because there's so much focus on the other things that we can do, and even a big shift in the biohacking, right? Everybody's, lots of supplements and all of these things that we can do. But what we're talking about, we already have the tools, right? And you already have all the resources. You don't have to spend any money, just a little bit of time. And I know from going through just small sessions with you, and it's just probably a fraction of what I could be doing, the shifts that I have felt, and, even doing the breath work and being open to it. I still do it in the morning. I do it if I'm feeling stressed. And I used to get this like tingling in my fingers when I felt anxious or overwhelmed and just paralyzed, like, oh, this is going wrong, that's going wrong. I have all this stuff to do, and I've only got an hour left in the day, and I would just spiral. And now I'm like, okay, step back, do my breathing, regulate. It's like a super drug, right?
Right. So you're building resilience. So what's your favorite breathing technique?
I just like to do the 4-8, just kind of sit there, and it's quick, it's easy, and, really just gets me grounded.
Yeah.
If nobody's around and I do need some energy, I will do the breath of fire. I feel like if you want to see woo woo and you think it, that's it. I'm making sure nobody's around. If the kids or my wife's around, they're okay. But, I'm not doing that one in the office just yet. But that one is great for that energy. It's like an instant shot of, espresso.
Right. And it would be really interesting to see the reaction of the people in the office if you were to invite them in to do it. So, a lot of people are like, so Maria, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm kind of like just a personal trainer to show you how to build up a toolbox so that you can regulate your nervous system. And that's really what it is, because we have everything. Just like you said, we have it. We've
Yeah.
just never been taught how to access it correctly and which type of breathing is appropriate for different situations, right? And so it's wonderful. And I love watching how it just opens people up to open space for themselves to grow and to build wealth, to build their business
Right.
and to move forward without fear, right? So the biggest thing I find with the entrepreneurs is that coming from a place of lack or fear, am I doing the right thing? Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? Right? That's the
Right.
stories in our head. But the minute you close your eyes and you go, how does it feel in my body if I say yes to this project? How does it feel in my body if I say no to this project? You know right away. It's a yes or no, and it's pretty apparent because your body knows before your brain. Your brain is the one that's keeping you going in that chaotic cycle. So the breath will bring you back to center.
I love it. I love it. You have a couple things out there, right? You have your book, a little bit about the book out there. If somebody wants to pick that up, what's the title of the book there?
It's not released yet. It will be released in the fall. So it's called Breathe, Flow, Create, which is the method that I've trademarked from my experience of moving through all of this over the past 6 years. And I have a platinum coaching group that I work with. We meet twice a month. And I also have some online offerings and courses, and then some local things. I do a lot of keynote speaking for
Okay.
various organizations and create workshops for different organizations to teach them the tools on not only team building through the power of your breath, but I also do that create piece and the flow piece has to do with neuro art and somatic movement without any attachment to the outcome of just creating something.
Wow.
It's different.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. If somebody wants to learn more about this or find you or see some of your work, what are some of the best places for people that want to connect and learn a little bit more?
Thank you. So on social media, on all the platforms, you can find me as Maria Brown Breathwork. And if you want to reach out to me, my email you can put in at the end,
Yeah, I'll put it
or
in the show notes.
it's Maria at serenitywellnessandcoaching.com.
I love it.
Yeah.
Maria, thank you so much for taking the time and really breaking down some simple steps that hopefully our listeners can take right from the podcast and put into place today. And
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I always like to ask everybody, smart money is really about living life on your terms and really creating that freedom and shifting not just the financial aspect, but the way you live life. So I'm going to ask you our signature question here, and then we'll wrap it up. So, when you think about living life on your own terms, what does that look like for you, and what's one step that someone listening can take to get closer to that?
That's a great question. For me, it's really financial and time freedom. I love to travel. I love to be with people and I love to teach. But for me, that's what that looks like. It looks like financial freedom and time freedom. The one step I would say is trust in yourself that on the days that you feel resistance, those are the days that your body is screaming for you to pay attention and to slow down and slow down your breath. Do something for yourself that's going to allow you to shift from survival to thriving. That would be the first thing that I would recommend. Just like I suggested for you, Chris, like try it in the office. Like you can be a role model, right? Wealth isn't always just say your health is your wealth as well. And it's not always just in the form of investments of monetary things, but it's the demonstration that we can give to other generations. If you're a parent and you do these things with your family, these are the tools that allow them to grow into businesses later on into their future, knowing how to self-regulate. That is wealth. That's future wealth. That's future generational wealth where you're making an impact because your child will go out and tell one of their friends, and their friends will go out and tell somebody else. Each one of us has the ability to make that impact where we can shift the way that wealth and abundance is out there for everyone. And it starts from here.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's so true. It really does start, and it's that ripple effect. We hope that everyone listening enjoyed the podcast and shares this with somebody that is important to them, right? So that we can continue that ripple effect and to impact everyone listening and really make a difference in our lives and then in the lives of our family around us. So, Maria, it has been such a pleasure. And I really just want to thank you for joining us today. And I look forward to staying connected. And for everybody out there listening, make sure you find Maria on social, get connected. And if you got something out of the podcast today, make sure you like it and share it on social media with your friends. On that note,
Yeah, thank you. And subscribe. I
yep,
subscribed.
and subscribe. Maria, what's your podcast? You've got a podcast out there now. Let's give you a little plug before we jump off here.
My podcast is Regulate Your Nervous System with Maria Brown. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. So you want to learn a little bit about the science made simple and understand what's happening in your body. Come check it out. Come join me. Thank you so much, Chris. This has been a pleasure, absolute joy. And also hearing how you have shifted yourself in your business. I love to hear that. That's my favorite part of doing all of this is when people come back and say, I tried the few little things that you said. And sometimes, you know what? This may not be the best business model because it happens so quickly, right?
Say that I'm an expert. I take little bits and pieces from our session and some of our conversations when we were together in Bali, and I just implement and little by little. I mean, it's hard not to want to do it once you see and feel the impact. It is so simple. I mean, I don't know that I'm doing it right or perfect, but I just know that I feel different after. So I'm like, then must be work and I must be doing it, good and
Perfectly imperfect works and you will feel the effects. There's no perfect way to do it. The only imperfect way to do it is breathing in through the mouth because that's
There you go.
hyperventilation, right? Thank you again. It's been wonderful. And I can't wait to see your next podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look forward to seeing you again soon. And thanks for joining us here on Smart Money. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. It's a great reminder that success isn't just about strategy. It's also about how you operate under pressure. When your nervous system is regulated, you think more clearly, you make better decisions, and that carries over into your finances and the life you're building. And ultimately, that's what Smart Money is about, creating clarity and structure to live life on your terms. Follow Smart Money with Chris Swartz for more conversations on building wealth with purpose. And if you found value in this episode, share it with someone you know who can benefit, because real wealth is life on your terms.